Today's video is brought to you by Manscaped.com, the global men's lifestyle brand that is shaking up the grooming world. All right, it's official. The University of Florida has officially given up on the sport of football. That was announced earlier today by Athletic Director Scott Stricklin that they will not be firing Billy Napier. A letter has been put out. I'm going to show it to you. We're going to talk about all of that and what it means both for Florida fans and everyone else, which basically Florida fans are mad. Everyone else is happy. I mean, obviously, Florida keeping Billy Napier is a win for the rest of the college football world and a giant L for Florida. We're going to take a look at the letter that was released by the athletic director earlier today, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. But first, check out Manscaped.com. All right, now Halloween is behind us. We got Thanksgiving, and then Christmas is right around the corner. And you know what that means. It's time to tighten up those jingle bells. We're right in the middle of football season, and whether you're talking about the NFL, college football, or fantasy, there's one thing we can all agree on. It is an absolute must that you take care of your game balls. Do not be that 5-star dummy that leaves your personal grooming habits on the end of the bench. 5-star dummy. Check out the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, your ultimate grooming playbook. This all-star lineup has everything you need to stay sharp on and off the field. Up first, we've got the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, and this is your star player. This trimmer handles all your below the waist needs with precision and power, whether it's for game day or date night. With next-gen dual skin-safe blades, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is designed for top-tier performance. You start with the upgraded trimmer blade for a clean, easy trim, then switch on over to the foil blade for a smooth, bare finish. It's really like having two trimmers in one. The all-new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra also has a bigger LED light to help illuminate those tricky spots and a dual temperature feature. No more missed assignments in your grooming routine. But wait, there's more. The Weed Whacker 2.0, that's right, say goodbye to the bothersome nose hairs with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra Kit, which comes complete with the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. It's also waterproof, cordless, and rechargeable, and guess what? Built with the same skin-safe technology. This thing's designed to tackle those nose and ear hairs with ease. You're also going to get both the Crop Soother and the Crop Preserver. Post-shave, you can show your MVPs some love with the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. Keep fresh and comfortable through all 4 quarters and into overtime. And just for fun, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra also includes not 1, but 2 free gifts. You get the Boxers 2.0 and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. That's a winning combo. Go ahead and join the over 10 million men who have trusted Manscaped to get them game day ready. Head on over to manscaped.com, enter the promo code TheUncleLou, and they're going to give you free shipping and 20% off. That's promo code TheUncleLou, only at manscaped.com. All right, Florida Athletic Director Scott Stricklin has announced in an open letter to fans today that they will not be firing Billy Napier this season and that he will be back next year as head coach of the Florida Gators. Now, just to recap, Florida has had 3 straight losing seasons in a row, 2 of which belong to Billy Napier. Dan Mullen had a losing season his last year at Florida. They fired him. They brought in Billy Napier. He had a losing season year 1. He had a losing season last year, and Florida currently this year is 4-4, coming off their 4th straight loss to rival UGA. And you look at the rest of their schedule, and it's what we've all talked about: Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, and then Florida State. Probably only going to win one of those, finish at 5-7. So Florida is gonna, at the end of this season, Florida will have had 4 losing seasons in a row. 3 straight losing seasons under Billy Napier, who has had a losing record every single year he's been there and looks like will again this year. Florida is currently ranked 51st in the country in recruiting for next year's class. They're ranked 15th out of 16 teams in the SEC in terms of recruiting for next year's class. This appears to me to be a move strictly designed to keep one player, DJ Lagway. There's obviously a lot of problems with that. I'm going to talk about all of that. Let me pull up first, though, the article that was published on ESPN.com earlier today. I'm going to read some of this from this article, and then we'll take a look at the letter. But Billy Napier will continue to coach Florida, according to athletic director Scott Stricklin. He put to rest rampant speculation about the embattled coach's future with the Gators. In a letter Thursday, Stricklin stressed the need for, quote, disciplined, stable approach, and asked Florida fans to, quote, continue standing behind Billy and his dedicated team while we work together to build a championship program. This is an absolute disaster for Florida. Napier in his third season at Florida is 15-18. After a 41-17 season opening loss to Miami, he faced increased scrutiny over his job performance, scrutiny that mounted after a 33-20 loss to Texas A&M 2 weeks later. And I will remind you, Texas A&M played a freshman quarterback in that game, making his first ever start because Connor Wegman was hurt, Reed. Stricklin, however, has been unwavering in his support of Napier, who has repeatedly said he needs time to get the Gator program headed in the right direction. Again, he's been there 3 years, losing record every year. Recruiting class currently 51, and they think that's headed in the right direction. Back-to-back wins over Mississippi State and Central Florida helped quell fan discontent. I've talked about this before. It's absolutely sad that Florida as a program has reached a point where their fans are happy with wins over Mississippi State and Central Florida while getting blown out by Florida and losing to their rival for the fourth year in a row, the Georgia Bulldogs. But that's where they are. Performance and close loss. They're bragging about close losses to Tennessee and Georgia. This is just pitiful. It's just absolutely pitiful. Claiming that close losses shows progress. Quote, we've seen these past several weeks. The young men on this team represent what it means to be a Gator, Stricklin wrote. Quote, their resolve, effort, and execution are evident in their performance and growth each week, building a foundation that promises greater success next season and beyond. Just a brief reminder, Florida's schedule next year is exactly the same as this year, the conference schedule anyway. So all these tough games that they're playing this year, they're going to play them all again next year. It's just switched between home and road games. Stricklin added that he is, quote, confident that Billy will meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. The Gators are 4-4 this season, including 2-3 in the SEC. They visit number 5 Texas on Saturday before closing the regular season. Home for LSU, home for Ole Miss, and at rival Florida State. Much of the progress Stricklin cites has to do with the way Florida's freshmen and sophomores have played. I'm not going to read the rest of this article to you here. I will see if I can find the actual letter that Scott Stricklin put out. In fact, let me put that up right now. All right, here you go. This is from the official Florida Gators Twitter account, or X account, I guess it's called now. But here's the letter from Scott Stricklin. Gator Nation, I want to let you know that Billy Napier will continue as head football coach of the Florida Gators. As we've seen these past several weeks, the young men on this team represent what it means to be a Gator. Their resolve, effort, and execution are evident in their performance and growth each week, building a foundation that promises greater success next season and beyond. Florida's commitment to excellence in a championship caliber program is unwavering. In these times of change across college athletics, we are dedicated to a disciplined, stable approach that is focused on long-term, sustained success for Gator athletes, recruits, and fans. This is such a joke. I'm confident that Billy will meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. We will work alongside him to support any changes needed to elevate Gator football. As college athletics evolves, Florida is committed to embracing innovation and strategy, ensuring the Gators thrive in today's competitive landscape. Gator Nation has remained strong, showing up game after game to stand with our team. This loyalty creates an incredible environment that inspires our players to compete with heart and determination. Now, I call on all of Gator Nation to continue standing behind Billy and his dedicated team while we work together to build a championship program. Go Gators, Scott Stricklin, Athletics Director. I don't even really know where to start here, but we're going to start with Athletic Director Scott Stricklin. Now, when you talk to Florida fans about what is going on there with their football program, there's a couple of different sort of angles that they take. You've got, you know, the Billy Napier is terrible, we just need to get rid of him crowd. You've got the, well, Scott Stricklin's a terrible athletic director. All of our programs are worse off now than they were before Scott Stricklin, but Scott Stricklin hired Billy Napier. So until Scott Stricklin is replaced, the athletic director, we're going to be stuck with Billy Napier. That angle sort of is based on the theory by some Florida fans that Scott Stricklin does not want to fire Billy Napier, because if he does, he has to admit that he messed up by hiring Billy Napier, and his job is already sort of teetering on the edge, the athletic director. So he doesn't want to have to fire another football coach. He wants this football coach to succeed because it will prop up his job that he has done as athletic director. That's the theory. You then have sort of the NIL / booster / money component of all of this, the AAU at Florida and how much influence or power they have compared to athletic director Scott Stricklin, and whether or not they support Billy Napier or don't, or how many of them support Billy Napier versus sort of how many of them don't. And that kind of thing kind of goes on at every program with the boosters. In fact, in a lot of cases, what ends up being the final straw for a lot of coaches is when the boosters start to withdraw financial support. Now, we haven't necessarily seen that yet at Florida, but this is in my opinion, a bad situation for Florida. On the one hand, I completely understand why they do not want to be changing coaches again after 3 years of Billy Napier. The reality is nobody wants to be changing coaches every 3 years. And if you look at Florida's history, really since Urban Meyer, after Urban Meyer left, they really haven't been able to keep anybody for longer than 2 or 3 years. And you start to run through the list in your head. They're at, of course, Napier now. Prior to that, you had Dan Mullen, who was there for, 3 seasons? Before that, you had McElwain that was there for 3 seasons. Before that, Muschamp, who was there for 3 seasons. You sort of see the pattern here. And so I understand maybe where some of the higher-ups would look at what's going on at Florida and say, we can't get where we want to go if we're continually changing coaches every 3 to 4 years. And you know what? I agree with that. You can't put a program where Florida wants to be and stay there for a consistent period of time if you're changing coaches every 3 or 4. That is 100% true. The problem, of course, is if you're hiring coaches that aren't any good, they're never going to get you there no matter how long you keep them there. And the risk you run with keeping somebody like Billy Napier is that the longer he is there, the further that team and program will deteriorate from a talent perspective. I mentioned at the top of the video, Florida is currently ranked 51st in the country nationally in recruiting. And you can tell me that nothing matters till signing day. And okay, that's fine. Signing day is a month away. A little over a month. It's the second week of basically the beginning of the second week of December is early signing day. How much room for improvement really do you think there is? Well, there's a ton of room for improvement for Florida's recruiting class, but how much improving do you think Florida's recruiting class is really going to do between now and the first week of December? Because first of all, it's only a 4 or 5 weeks. Number two, what do you think is going to happen to their record over the next 3 to 4 weeks? Do you think it's going to get better? Do you think recruits are waiting on Florida to win games? They just lost to Georgia. This week, they're on the road at Texas. They then play LSU and Ole Miss at home. Florida's got about a 90% chance of losing all of those. And then, and this is worst case scenario here, they have now announced they're keeping Billy Napier. What do you think is going to happen if for some reason, and I am not predicting this, what do you think would happen with the Florida fans, the boosters, whatever, if Florida somehow loses that last game of the season on the road at Florida State? As bad as they are, they're sitting on 1 win right now. They're going to play. They play Notre Dame this week. They're going to lose again. Florida State is. Didn't they play, I think, Charleston Southern or something in a couple of weeks? They may win that one. But the point is, you've already now committed yourself to Billy Napier. You're likely to lose your next 3 games, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. And then you finish up the season with Florida State. If they drop that game to Florida State after already having come out now and basically told you we're keeping Billy for next year, I honestly don't know what the fans would do or say. The recruiting class is ranked 51st, okay? And you can talk to me about the portal. That's fine. Florida is not a program that should have to rely on the portal to get their recruiting out of the 50s. This is absolute. Dan Mullen was fired 1 year after winning the SEC East and playing for an SEC championship. In 2020, Florida was 1 win away from the playoffs. 1 win away from the playoffs under Dan Mullen. The following year, Dan Mullen had 1 down year, and Florida fired him. Now, according to Florida and Florida fans and everyone else that talked about the situation with Mullen, Mullen was not fired for having the 1 bad year. Who remembers why Mullen had to go? We got to get rid of Mullen. Can't recruit. Remember? Dan Mullen just can't recruit. Well, look at this. This is the 2020 recruiting class rankings. Florida at 8 in the country. And they fired Dan Mullen because he couldn't recruit. This is Dan Mullen's last recruiting class. He was fired at the end of the 2020 season. 8th. Now, he was fired heading into the 2021 cycle. He was fired a couple of months before the 2021 signing class was signed. And that class for Florida did drop off. You can see it was not ranked 8th in the country. It was ranked 12th. 12th. Dan Mullen's last 2 recruiting classes at Florida were 8th nationally and 12th nationally. He played for the SEC championship game and was 1 win away from the playoffs in 2020. He was fired in 2021. Billy Napier is about to have his 3rd straight losing season. He's only been there 3 years. So, in other words, he's had a losing season every year. He's about to have another one. His recruiting class is ranked 51st in the country, 15th out of 16 teams in the SEC. And Scott Stricklin puts this letter out. Florida is not a serious program when it comes to football right now. Lagway will probably end up being a really good talent, a really good quarterback, a really good college football player. From what little we have seen of him this season, and unfortunately he got hurt in the Georgia game, but from what little we have seen of him as a true freshman, he does look like he has the potential to be a really good college football player. Florida is not a quarterback away from being a relevant program right now. And I've emphasized this before about some other football programs. There's a difference between having a bad team and having a bad program. A bad team is sort of, it's a subjective term generally based on where a team normally performs. So in other words, take Georgia or Bama or Ohio State or any of these teams that tend to win, 10 plus games in their sleep every single year. If any of those teams were to go 8-4, that would be considered a bad team that particular year, a bad season, a bad team, right? That would not in and of itself be an indication that any of those were bad programs, right? You take any of those teams, they win 10, 11 games a year. All of a sudden you look around and 1 year they're 8-4. That's a bad year. It's a bad season. It's a bad team. Not an indication of a bad program. Bad teams are going to happen. Bad teams happen to the best programs in the country, right? This isn't a case of Florida being a bad team this year. This isn't a case of Florida having a bad season. Florida's a bad program. Part of it is bad coaching hires, no question. Again, we went through the list. They've made a series of terrible coaching hires. Part of it, and this is probably why they're keeping Napier, they probably pulled the trigger a little too soon on Dan Mullen. Did he do anything great at Florida? No, but he had them in a much better spot than they're in now. And again, won the SEC East in 2020 and played for the SEC championship. Was 1 win away from the playoffs in 2020. They then fired him at the end of the 2021 season. Hell, go back to Jim McElwain. Jim McElwain was the head coach at Florida for 3 seasons. In 2 of those 3 seasons, he won the SEC East and played for the conference championship game. And they fired him. They fired him. Now they've got Napier. The guy's got no winning record, losing season every year, recruiting in the 50s. next to last in the SEC. And this is the guy they have to stand behind? This is the guy they have to have patience with? This is the guy you got to wait on? Florida's not a serious program. They're not taking football seriously. They're more like Georgia Tech than they are Georgia right now. That's what Florida is as a football team and as a football program. As a fan of college football, when I see what's happening at Florida, it is sad. It is sad to see. As a Georgia fan, I can't stop laughing.